I aim to be better than everyone else I have to meet in that room. I do not always succeed, but at least it's a goal.
Welcome to another episode of Business Beyond Borders. Today we're very excited to have with us Lynette Chew, who is a partner at CMS Singapore and a director of CMS Holborn Asia. With more than 25 years of experience, Lynette has handled multiple domestic as well as cross-border disputes as lead counsel in the Singapore courts as well as institutional arbitrations. Her experience and expertise also extends to mediation as the lead counsel and mediator. Lynette specializes in the infrastructure, construction, and energy sectors. Beyond the contentious side of her work, Lynette also acts as project counsel in multiple building and construction industry projects, including multiple greenfield development projects. And one of the most notable projects that she has been involved in is acting as project counsel to the construction of Marina Bay Sands Singapore, which I'm really excited to find out more shortly. Her experiences has extended and received multiple accolades and recommendations from legal directories, and her exceptional legal acumen as well as in-depth understanding of the industry has made her a really respected figure in the field. Welcome, Lynette. Welcome to today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Daphne. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, maybe we'll kick off by understanding a little bit more about your role as a partner here at CMS Singapore. Maybe walk us through how does your day-to-day life look like?
Well, it all depends. I think it involves, wearing many different hats. Sometimes it's all at once. So I think, first of all, it involves making sure, the client work is done. That's a given.
Yep.
The quality that the work is delivered at and the timeliness of the work. I think beyond that, we also need to take care of the team.
Okay.
So a lot of times we actually spend time understanding how stretched the team is, whether the team is properly utilized and everybody has the right amount of work at the right levels. So that's that. And of course, we also want to be there to be supportive with other partners, in the firm and the office where they need help. Sometimes, we work across matters and across teams.
Yeah.
So we collaborate quite a bit. And also inter-offices. Sometimes we have colleagues in Europe and parts of Latin America that needs help. They might reach out.
Okay.
And despite the time zones, we try to get back to our partners as soon as we can.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a bit of that. And like most law firms and partners, there's a lot of other administrative stuff that's boring but is needed. So yes.
Okay. I really like that. You mentioned taking care of the team. I think that's always very important in, building a strong culture in any company. But maybe we can touch a little bit more about your focus and specialization in the infrastructure as well as construction sector. How do you decide on focusing on this area?
Well, it was totally accidental. I did not finish law school and say to myself I want to do construction work. Well, I was very clear that I'm probably more interested in dispute work.
Okay.
So I started out as a commercial disputes lawyer. And I was quite blessed to work with very eminent senior partners.
Okay.
And that put me in pretty good stead. And as I moved or changed firms, as one of them moved to the bench. So I moved to another firm and I ended up working with partners who did a little bit more building construction work.
Right.
So I started. In those days we don't really decide what we want to do. It's a little bit different now. But we basically did what our bosses did. So I ended up working for a partner who did more construction work.
Okay.
And he was more a transactional partner and he needed help with the disputes angle. So I came in to try and help him, and that's how it all started, and one thing led to another.
Yeah.
And soon he needed help with Marina Bay Sands.
Yeah.
And then Nickel Highway collapsed and we acted for the largest reinsurer for that claim. So it just evolved from there. And as we move into a boutique law firm that we started, our team at that time, and we were then, I guess, as partners in our own right, forced to go out, look for work. So we focused on an area, and, it was an area that we're comfortable doing. So it was building construction that led to, it evolved to energy disputes, and we started doing more, from buildings to power plants to then subways, and bridges. So it evolves.
You must be an expert in this field now.
I am certainly not, but I think every case is different, and you have a different context. So getting to learn each case and the factual matrix, it's interesting. Yeah.
And also, one of the interesting things is, especially we know in the building and construction sector, is quite male-dominated. And also, we understand that you are the only female lawyer accredited by the Singapore Academy of Law as the Singapore Senior Accredited Specialist for Building and Construction. How do you continue to hold yourself in this male-dominated industry? I believe I myself can also learn a lot from this.
I guess you need to develop selective hearing and selective amnesia, and at the same time still accord the courtesy and respect to your fellow counsels and tribunal. A lot of times it just means you have to make sure you do all the prep work and be very good at what you do and know what you're saying. I try to be, I aim to be better than everyone else I have to meet in that room. I do not always succeed, but at least it's a goal. So, there's a lot of work that had to be done before. So you can't run away from that. Yeah. But I think inevitably, you will get bullied, whether it's a tribunal or even a client. And I think you just need to hold your ground and be very confident that you are good enough. Because you have prepared. And just be there and hang in there, and eventually you will get a just outcome. And I think, this brings to mind this incident that nearly made me quit practice.
Oh no.
I think about 12 years ago, and I was in the High Court. I was the only female lead counsel. There were 4 parties, 3 male lead counsels.
Wow.
I was just given such a hard time.
I can imagine.
It was a 9-day trial, and I had an all-female team. I think my associate said to me, I don't think you're going to get any question in. He's just not going to let you ask anything.
Oh no.
But it was being transcribed, so I just had to get on with it. But at that moment, by the 5th day, I wanted to dig a hole and hide in it, because it was just so unbearable. But I think eventually I went on appeal, and I won the appeal, and I got the rightful outcome. And, he's no longer, he's retired. So it made me think really hard after that, if having gone through that whole traumatic experience, that whether it was really worth it to continue. And I would say, try and let it go.
Okay.
Is the other thing.
I was going to ask, what changed your view or made you continue to stay in practice until today?
I think I have too much fun.
Okay.
For me, cross-examining a witness is very fun, because in the process, you see all that human in that person. And the personality comes out, especially when they are cornered. And if you're in a stage where you know the facts and the documents better than him, you should prevail. So it's very fun, because it's like playing a game for me.
I guess when you make your work like a passion and something that you enjoy very much, you'll be able to sustain in the industry and do well for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think it's you must enjoy it.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next question. You have a wealth of experience across, arbitration and then cross-border disputes, and also in acting as project counsel in the non-contentious side of things. Maybe share with us what has, you guys touched on a little bit earlier, but what are some key momentous moments in your journey that has led you to the position that you're today?
One, you have to enjoy what you do. So you need to find an area of practice that suits your personality and DNA. For me, I started out as a disputes lawyer. Somehow in between, I got into transactional work because the clients got clever and said, instead of fighting our disputes, why don't you draft our contracts?
Right.
And make sure that we have no disputes.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. So if I were asked to do that transactional work right from the start, I would have hated it.
Okay.
I think because I had gone through probably a good 10 years of my practice as a disputes lawyer, it made my transactional experience a lot easier. And it was easier to, I used to tear apart all these agreements because I fight in the disputes, but now I get a chance to put it all together in the way that I think would work really well. And that in itself is a different challenge, and it's quite tough as well. In a very different way, and I quite enjoy it. But it's a different hat, and sometimes you need to swap it. So there isn't really a moment. Every case is interesting in itself.
And then you build up the experience over time, which then brought you to where you are today.
Because it's so fun. I mean, one day I'll be looking at a coal-fired power plant. I learn about how it makes power and how it's being built and the different systems. Then another day I'm looking at design of subsea cables for offshore wind farm, and I try to understand from my client why there is a variation of this design of the subsea cable. And it's interesting. And then for Nickel Highway, I was camped in the expert's office. My geotech experts for a month in London, understanding soil strength in marine clay, because we were dealing with the collapse. So I think if you're not close and you're inquisitive, for me it's very fun just to understand the whole context. And I learned so much. I mean, even laying bricks and what the expansion joint should be for, which surface area should you have one expansion joint. That was my first case. I still remember it, but I think it allows me to learn a lot of different engineering concepts. That's quite interesting.
And which brings me maybe to the next question, which is, what's the most memorable project that you have acted as counsel to in Asia?
There isn't one. I would say the one that has the largest impact in my life was Marina Bay Sands. Because it took maybe 2.5 years of my life. I think I didn't stop working for 2.5 years nonstop, every single day. And that was memorable because I saw the project from inception to the end. So we were involved at the RFP stage. I was a lot more involved only at the building construction stage. And I worked with world-class consultants, project directors, and even project administrators. They were the best, all put together in one team. Sometimes we are stationed at the project site office. It's this mega site office. You've never seen one. I've never seen one that huge. It has everything. You can live in there.
Oh, really?
There's food, there are showers, there's offices, there's everyone's there. And I think that, in the process of negotiating and putting together the contracts and, giving them the conditions that they want, you just learn so much that, it gives you the perspective that you'll never get. Had I, just stayed in the office and drafted it. It's all that meetings and interactions and listening to their perspectives, whether it's a commercial director or project director or the QSs and the engineers and the administrators. It's interesting. Everyone has to work together. And it became very apparent to me that you can't do great projects alone. And no one's an island. So it's the same in practice. You cannot do great things alone. And it's important that we have a good team.
Yeah. And what were some of the key learnings from that project? I mean, you spent 2.5 years of your life invested in it. How did, some of the things that you have learned applied to projects that you're involved in today?
I think 1, you cannot do anything well alone.
Yeah.
2, pay attention to the details.
Yeah.
3, having a diverse team is critical. In that project, we had the best from all over the world.
Okay.
And it's just their perspectives, because they come with their own set of experience, their own set of upbringing that is vastly different from what I'm used to, or me. And that was so critical.
Yeah.
And having that actually put the whole project team in a lot better state of position than you would imagine. It's the kind of things that are being discussed in the meetings, and you're exposed to that, and you're like, wow, I have not even thought of that.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
So these are the takeaways.
And how do you feel like, driving past or looking at MBS now, since you have spent so much time in it?
I mean, it continues to be that iconic thing. I mean, I go for partners meeting. I was just recently in Oslo, and I told my Norwegian partners that we were the project councils.
Yeah.
It's not just me, but Kelvin, who's also a partner with me now in CMS. It's the two of us were the project councils for MBS, and they're like, wow. And I said, it's interesting because it's such an engineering feat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Must be very memorable. I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we ourselves enjoy MBS for what it is today, but, the hard work that went in to build such an iconic structure in Singapore must have been quite memorable, and also something that you would reflect fondly upon.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe, moving on to a couple more, the more contentious side of the work that you have done, as you have worked across multiple jurisdictions and on various cross-border disputes. What were some of the principles that you hold yourself to really help your clients achieve a successful outcome?
I think success means many things. It doesn't always have to be a win.
Yeah.
But I guess for every matter that I do, I kind of know the various possibilities. And as the matter progresses, then I have a better sense of what success is.
Yeah.
I think most importantly, integrity in the way you conduct the matter. That's very important.
Definitely.
And that's something we actually focus a lot on in the team. And we hope to set the right parameters.
Yeah.
Be very well prepared. I know I've said this more than once, but it's inevitable that you need to really know yourself. Not just know it, but understand it well.
Yeah.
So having a good team is important.
Yeah.
So that you can be well prepared.
Yeah.
There's no taking away that preparation that needs to be done before the hearing. That's where the fun starts. So if you don't prepare, then the hearing becomes really grueling because you feel like you're catching up as it goes along. And it's not really fun.
Correct.
Yeah. So I find that if I'm very well prepared, it makes me very versatile. I could switch and turn. It depends on how the witness moves.
Yeah, because you know exactly what are the details that goes into that case, and then you are able to make a judgment call pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think no witness can know the matter or the facts better than me. Only because I have spent that many hundreds of hours. Yeah. And I guess also everyone's different. I think taking the time to try and understand the tribunal that you'll be submitting to. Understand their background, their experience, their preferences. This can only be apparent to you through experience if you've appeared before that tribunal before. Be prepared. Do extra homework. Like, for example, I had to cross-examine a Glaswegian quantum expert. This was virtual hearing 3 weeks during COVID.
Yeah.
And we were all huddled up in this office in a virtual hearing room, and he is sitting in Scotland.
Okay.
And you know the Glaswegian accent is really tough.
Yeah.
And it's so in preparation,
Yeah.
my counsel, who's very nice in my team, sent me webinars of this expert. He gave a few webinars, and I spent whenever I drove to work or from work, I would listen to his webinar like a podcast in my car to tune my ears to his accent. And it really helped because then I could understand what he's saying to me when I ask him a question. So, I mean, these are little things because you need to understand culturally, the accents, and it differs from person to person. And I guess sometimes you need to do a little bit more to prepare.
Yeah.
Just to make your life easier when you're at a hearing.
Yeah. That's very inspirational. Your preparation does not only extend to the case preparation, but even when it comes down to the accents and understanding cultures, you also spend quite a bit of time on that. And I have to say that's really respectable.
I think it's more, I do it more to make my life easier, I think. Because, it's a struggle. I think if he's in person, it might be slightly easier, but across the virtual hearing, it might present a different set of difficulties.
Yeah. Speaking of cultures, I think in Asia, we all know that it's a melting pot of different cultures. And having dealt with many projects and cases across the region, what were some of the new cultural aspects across different countries that you have observed over the past couple of years?
I think it's all very nuanced. There isn't really a certain. There's so much to say. We have a lot of Korean clients and some other Asian clients. But I think most importantly, you need to be very observant when you are in a different culture or jurisdiction. You learn quite a lot of things by just observing and listening. And just watching how things are done. You can then, after that, go, research it or ask your friends.
Yes.
But you need to be observant and be quite respectful.
Okay.
Especially the Korean and Japanese culture, they tend to be a little bit more reserved.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And last question, looking ahead, there are many things that are always changing in terms of regulations, and also in the construction infrastructure sector. I'm sure there are also a lot of changes and developments within the sector itself. How do you typically keep up to date with latest developments and regulations, especially, looking at different regions?
I think I've been quite blessed with invites to speak in certain conferences in different countries. So sometimes in preparation for that, I would get the team to do some research for me on the latest cases and the industry and the sectors in that I would be speaking on in the jurisdiction. And once I'm there, I would be also interacting with the other councils and industry players and clients. So it's a two-way street, I would say. I learn a lot just from listening to them and interacting with them. Also, sometimes catching up with clients, even if it's a quick coffee catch-up, it's just to understand what's making them lose sleep, what's keeping them busy, and always being interested in what's happening. Of course, legal updates are something that we do as a norm. So what we do is on a week-to-week basis, we would trawl the latest developments in the legal side, and we put it up in small little articles, and that would be sent to clients, because I assume my client will be interested in the related topics. So that's what we try and do on a weekly or monthly basis.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be updated.
Yeah, I know I said it as the final question, but maybe just one last one. Given that you have been in the building and construction sector for so long, and also you mentioned you kind of stumbled onto it over the past couple of years, how would you think about advising younger lawyers who are considering a career in this sector? Any advice for them?
Any advice for them? Let me see. You need to find an area. If this is the sector that you're interested in, then I would say persist.
Okay.
Be consistent in your daily activities and your work, and persist. To build a career, you need to take a day at a time. For me, I set 5-year milestones and I reassess every 5 years.
Okay.
I'm now in my 27th. I don't know if I'll reach 30, but that would certainly be the next milestone where I'll sit and ask myself, should I continue?
Right.
It's nothing really. I think do not give up, and you are definitely good enough. Be confident. I think this is something that no one told me, and you just have to. For my generation, I think we try to learn along the way.
Yeah.
But the new generation, I find that I have to keep reminding them that you are good enough. So just give it your best, and you'll be fine. The other thing that's important that no one told me is that you should learn the art of persuasion.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a lot more than just making submissions on the law correctly or citing the right facts and documents, which was what I started doing, which isn't a bad start. But I think you have to understand that persuading someone to align themselves with your views and your submissions requires a lot more than just citing the right legal concepts and documents or evidence. And I wish someone could have told me that sooner. Yeah.
Okay, I think those are all my questions today. Thank you so much, Lynette, for joining us in today's episode. Really thankful that you joined us and also have learned a lot from your sharing. And yeah, that's all for today.
Thank you, Daphne. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Business Beyond Borders. If you have any feedback or thoughts, do write into us at support@bluent.com. Click to follow to tune into the next episode. See you again soon.